Welcome to C# for Crestron programming. We will continue Power of the Method Part B now. Okay, I started another project to illustrate this concept of methods from a different perspective. Name for this project called Power of Methods. Now we will write a simple example declaring two integer numbers, checking which is greater, and then write the answer to the console window. Let us start defining a region labeled without a method. Integer number 1 equals 34. Integer number 2 equals 15. If number 1 is greater than number 2, console.writeLine is greater than, comma, number 1 and number 2. We pass the checked values to arguments with curly braces. Else if number 2 is greater than number 1. Console.writeLine with same format, we just swap number 2 value to be assigned to the first argument and number 1 to the second argument. Finally, another else to check if they are equal. Let us define the same block of code with different integer values. Number 1 equals 3324, and number 2 equal to 977863, and end region. Notice the amount of work that must be done without using a method. We start with another region called with method, and we comment out the code without method. Let us consider coding by defining methods to truly appreciate the power of them. Two integer variables, integer number 1 and integer number 2. Let us assign some constant values to each variable, 34 and 15, respectively. Let us define a custom method, check greater number, with parameter values number 1 and number 2. Now, call custom method within console.writeLine. How about calling .NET implementation method to return which number is greater? In another console.writeLine, we use keyword math.max of integer value number 1 and number 2. How about another random numbers assigned to integer number 1 and number 2, and we pass values for number 1 and number 2 to check which number is greater and output to console. We end the region, then console read key to obtain the next character key pressed by the user. Here is an example of a method without any return value. Private static void check greater number with parameters integer number 1, integer number 2. If number 1 is greater than number 2, console.writeLine with the argument 0, and one we pass the number 1 and number 2 values. We check with else if number 2 is greater than number 1. Another console.writeLine, and finally finish with else to check the final condition. Why did this method not return a value? Because the type we declared is void. Last example, with a method with a return value. Private static int get greater number, integer number 1 and integer number 2. Same block of code. If and else if and else. However, in the last else statement, we return the minimum value in the min value. In this tutorial, we learned about the power of methods within the C# environment. A method is a small group of reusable code that carries out a single task. To use a method, we define the method, then call it, or invoke the method when needed. The methods can be called an unlimited number of times within our program. So, to create a custom method, or use built-in .NET methods, we modularize our code to create a more concise and manageable program. Thank you for watching.